From the ancient maritime Silk Road to the spice route interactions of the past few centuries, Southeast Asia has always played a central role in global connectivity and trade. As countries in the region begin to pay greater attention to the value of their cultural heritage and history in the age of China's Belt and Road Initiative, it is more important than ever that we understand how people in this region choose to tell their stories. In this installment of our investigation into narratives of maritime connectivity, we want to look at one example of this type of cultural identity work in the region. Ternate, Indonesia. Once the hub of the global spice trade as nature's great store of nutmeg and clove and the headquarters of the Dutch East Indies Company, Ternate has a rich cultural history. Soon after landing, we began to explore how that culture is being preserved on the island and how cultural laws are discussed within the community. The National Law on Cultural Advancement views the diversity of regional culture as the wealth and identity of the nation, which is necessary to advance an Indonesian national culture amidst dynamic world development. Officials from the Cultural Affairs Department on the island said that this is one of the main reasons for an intensified focus on heritage in Ternate. Also, because the former colonizers are increasingly interested in coming back to the region and to explore what brought them here hundreds of years ago.
So this is the oldest fort in Indonesia. So when you talk about the Portuguese appearance in Indonesia, this one is the proof. Because they built in 1522. 2 years from now, it will celebrate 500 years. It's 500 years.
Over a delicious satay dinner and coffee, and through the help of the Ternate Heritage Society, we heard many community voices express that culture is simply too broad of a concept to allow a singular law in Indonesia.
Does the law give any direction in terms of how culture should be interpreted?
Given the country's incredible diversity, the question remains, who gets to determine what culture gets counted? But as many of them also explained, with law comes money, and that does allow for a certain amount of cultural preservation. But as one of the young gentlemen also put it, quote, "Cultural development and preservation should come from the community, not just the government." One such example of a community cultural movement in Ternate that we were able to experience is the Cengke Afo Community Initiative.
Hello, I'm Maulana from Department of Architecture, Hairun University. We are in Cengke Afo Tourism Park, the area that preserved by local community. So we're helping the community to revitalize the plantation area, have economic value, and also have cultural and social value.
Jawhar Mohammed has 3 occupations. He is the imam of his community, mall security guard at night, and chief of the Cengke Afo community. Cengke Afo is the world's oldest clove tree, situated halfway up Gamalama Mountain. As the welcoming display writes, it was thus safe from the efforts of the Dutch East India Company in the 17th century to selectively destroy clove trees, as they attempted to maintain their monopoly over the clove trade. Chief Mohammed tells us that the community was built with zero budget, only the spirit of gotong royong, or of collaboration. Through culinary traditions and education programs for the youth, he hopes to teach young people about Ternate culture. While he does hope to receive government funding in the future, he was adamant that the management of such a community should be left to the people.
Bukan cuma hanya daerah kelurahan sini saja, tapi di daerah-daerah lain itu kita memberikan contoh bahwa tidak harus pemerintah turun tangan dan sebagainya, tetapi kita juga harus berbuat lebih dulu apa yang kita punya dan kita tawarkan kepada pemerintah. Dan ini kalau memang itu bisa memberikan kontribusi terhadap pemerintah, kenapa tidak kan gitu. Sebagai warga masyarakat yang baik, yang memang kita harus perlu memikirkan bagaimana kehidupan masyarakat ke depan.
Jadi Bapak Presiden membantu kalau daerah lain mau bikin kayak
siap, kita siap.
before you finish your study, bachelor degree, the last year you have to go to the society and make a social project. We call it KKN, Kuliah Kerja Nyata. And this is one of the projects by the students who they sent here. They live here 2 months.
Thanks to the hospitality of our hosts, we were able to witness really impressive ground-level community efforts to take hold of and protect cultural heritage. But we also received varying responses from officials on the extent to which a Ternate culture before and beyond their colonial past was being talked about. What about the island's connections to maritime trade before the Europeans? What about the history of the sultanates? How is that being taught? And while the most visited and preserved sites were clearly European forts, there was a diversity of opinion on what the island should be known as going forward. Would it be a city of culture? A city of spice? A city of hospitality? Or did it need one of these monikers anyway? Historically, Ternate was critically important for global trade and for culture within the region. And yet it's only now beginning to activate that memory, that history, in order to form a more coherent and collective cultural identity. No matter how disparate the burgeoning grassroots cultural movement in Ternate seemed at times, it's so impressive that a place with relatively little in terms of organizational capacity and resources is still able to powerfully mobilize a local identity grounded in tradition and not geared toward tourism. With a focus on the next generation, and with players across all levels of society, community involvement remains a crucial piece of the Ternate story. A story that many other communities in the region can learn from, and a story that we think deserves to be told.